I lost my Venus due to priapism. Ask me anything. Priapism is what they warn about with erectile dysfunction drugs like Viagra. If you have an erection for too long and don't do something about it, you can develop a clot in the dorsal vein of your Venus. Your Venus then become ischemic and will die and have to be removed. That is what happened to me. Do you have a phantom Venus? Not yet, but I'm sure it would freak the shit out of me if it happened. Tragic, in all sincerity. Are you in a relationship? If so, how has it been affected? I'm in a relationship. My girlfriend has been very supportive, but this has been devastating to her as well. It happened pretty recently, almost 4 weeks, so we are still adjusting, and I'm still recovering. I had to go back to work last week, and everyone at work knows I had surgery, but I haven't told them. It's going to suck if it ever gets out what happened. How do you pee? I have enough tissue that I can still use a urinal because it aims straight down, but it'll be more difficult when I sit down. Right now I still have a cath bag, which I know is a long time to have a cath bag. They are taking it out soon because the risk for infection is really high. Did you get it from one of those drugs? Also, how do you urinate now? Yes, it was from taking Levitra. It actually wasn't even my prescription. I borrowed a pill from a friend. I have a cath bag right now that I have to empty. I have a meeting with a plastic surgeon next week to try and recreate some semblance of a Venus to aim my urine with. So, did you just take one pill and this happened to you? Man dude, I'm a girl, but I really feel bad for you. I can't believe this can happen to people. It was one pill, but I don't know the prescription amount. It may have been high, I don't know. It's apparently a very rare side effect. Wow, that sounds horrible. How come you didn't go to the doctor right after that 4-hour mark? We were camping 2 hours from the nearest hospital. We were driving as fast as we could. Looking back, we could have called for life flight, but I don't know if priapism is considered something life-threatening that they would fly out for. As long as you talk to a guy, I'm pretty sure you could get an entire fleet of helicopters. I didn't think it was that serious at the time, but hindsight is 20 out of 20. I had no idea I could have lost my Venus. I just want to thank you for posting this. You taught me one important lesson. Viagra is one hell of a drug. I still wouldn't argue that the drug is dangerous for most people. Just don't be hours away from civilization the first time you try it. Chances are, if you tried it, it would work great for you. Don't be mistrustful of good things. Because of my bad experience, I share some fault in this, unfortunately. How long did it take? Was having an erection for a long time painful? Was this a result of an ED drug? And if so, were you warned? It awoke me out my sleep, and it was incredibly painful. WTF, I'm never sleeping again. So, how did the friends who gave you the prescription take it? Obviously you consented and everything, but they must feel something. Oh man, he felt so terrible. He actually cried with me about the whole thing. I've been trying to convince him that it isn't his fault and that I would have tried it, whether he gave it to me or someone else, but he still feels like it's partially his fault. I feel really terrible that he feels any guilt over this whole thing. I'm sure over the years he can work on making it up to you through guilt trips. Hey man, can I borrow your car this weekend? No, I kinda need it on Saturday. Oh, well, you know what I needed? My Venus. I'll leave the keys on the counter. I cannot even begin to imagine how much priapism hurts. Can you describe it? It's like a throbbing headache in your Venus. I could feel the pressure from every pulse, and it was excruciating. Much more painful than the appendicitis from my teen years. Can you still orgasm? Not through my Venus, obviously. I've had it possible through prostate stimulation, but I can't bring myself to try it. Out of curiosity, why not? I would feel really weird sticking something up my ass, but more than that, as I mentioned earlier, any talk of sex and I get anxious, almost panicky. How old are you? Like, did you need it, or are you a young dude taking it recreationally? Also, why in the woods? I'm 47. We were camping. It's just something we like to do. How long ago did this happen? And is there anything you can do about it, like phalloplasty? Do you want to do something about it? I'm meeting with a plastic surgeon next week who specializes in this. My understanding is that they can take some fat from my hip and make a small venus that pulls a little bit of the urethra with it. At best, I might be able to get a 2-inch venus for now, which is enough to people with comfortably. I've also heard there are old school surgeries you can get later to insert hard rods in it, so I would have a permanent fake erection, making intercourse possible. Ironic to say the least. I think I read on another IAmA here about a female who underwent surgery to become a male. I think he said something about how there was like a button that filled his venus up with the rods you mentioned whenever he wanted to have sex. Yeah, apparently there's a couple options. I read there was an old school one where they would increase the pressure with a little pump like the old Reebok sneakers. I don't really know what the best options are now, but I will next week when I talk to the surgeon. Did they just discard your severed member? Not that you'd want to keep it or anything, but was there any discussion about what would be done with it afterwards? I would imagine so. I didn't ask about it. I figured they do with it the same as they do with a bad appendix. Throw it away. What was your reaction when the physicians told you that they would have to cut it off? How long did you have the erection? What does your girlfriend say about this? Has she been supportive? Are you worried from a relationship standpoint? I was in shock, but I didn't have time to think about it because it was an emergency. They explained the situation very quickly and I consented to go into surgery. My girlfriend is one of the most wonderful women I've ever met. She is so supportive, and I know this isn't easy for her either. I know this is a weird question, but what happens when you get aroused? It hasn't happened since the surgery. What country are you in? Did you have health care? Did they cover the emergency procedure? Were the hospital staff responsive enough? Do you think it could have been saved? As this is pretty rare, if I gave my county I'm worried I could ID myself. I do have insurance through my job, and I have yet to see my bills yet. I'm really worried the venous reconstruction won't be covered, because otherwise, I don't know if I'll be able to afford it. What if someone doesn't need their venus? Can you get a transplant? People donate their organs all the time. Most likely after death in this case. Why would a venus be any different than a kidney or liver? A venus isn't considered a life-saving organ, and as such I don't think one has ever been attempted. They can rebuild it from my tissue over time. I totally disagree. Ensuring you have a functioning venus is life-saving. I believe that most men who read your post with utmost sympathy have a hard time imagining life without their venus. Where is the motivation? Everything we do comes back to rewarding our venus. If Bush hadn't been so ass backwards about stem cell research you would be able to grow a venus on the back of mouse. Regardless, I'm truly sorry for your loss. Well, as part of the male experience it would be, but in terms of having a pumping heart, or working lungs, liver, and kidneys, I don't think venus is an actual life-saving organ. However, if it's possible, I would be willing to try it. Have you felt horny since? Is it weird just having your balls hanging there? How did your girlfriend react? I haven't felt horny actually, in fact it's just the opposite. Every time I even hear about sex I get anxious. I'm hoping it will go away with therapy. My girlfriend has been very supportive. I honestly cannot imagine a more perfect person to have gone through this experience with. I love her very much. Do you already have kids? If not, can they manage some kind of in vitro? Have you talked about this with the document? How much did they have to remove? All of it? I lost my first wife and 8-year-old daughter in a car accident about 6 years ago. My girlfriend is the only person I've dated since, but we've been together for about 15 months. She is 39 and doesn't have any kids. I've been told in vitro is possible, but it's expensive and the risks are higher because we are both older. If we do decide to have children together, I think we'd probably adopt at this point. I lost essentially all of it except for this tiny little stub at the base, probably about a 1/4 of an inch. 5 months later, how are things going? I just stumbled upon this thread and it got me curious about how you're doing. Not too bad. Surgery is completed. Results are a little better than expected. I don't have any erogenous tissue left in my venus, so I can't climax during intercourse. I got an inflatable implant that resembles the old Reebok pump sneakers. I have a little pump in my scrotum that inflates the venus with fluid-filled ball in my abdomen. Still haven't brought myself to try prostate stimulation. Just really uncomfortable with crossing that boundary. My girlfriend that I had at the time and I broke up, but we are still on good terms and talk frequently. I still consider her a close friend. But overall, I can't complain.